Welcome, students, to INFS 321 Information Sources, Session 2. In the previous session, we looked at information sources. We are going to continue with the second part of information sources. I mentioned earlier that we have two schools of thought in classifying information sources or reference sources. The first, which uses documentary and non-documentary sources, and the second one, which we are going to look at, which we call the control access directional sources and source types. So at the end of this session, you'll be able to explain what we mean by the control access directional source and the source types. Topic 1 will look at the classification of reference sources known as the control access directional sources, and topic 2 will look at classification of reference sources known as the source types. We have your reading list there for you to consult. So we start. What are control access directional sources? These are known as bibliographies. What are bibliographies? Bibliographies are lists. Bibliographies are compilations or systematically produced descriptive lists of records. A bibliography just lists materials. So they contain permanent information about each item listed. And in a bibliography, you would have the author's name mentioned, you have the title of the publication, the edition number, the place of publication, the publisher, and the date of publication. That is what the list in a bibliography contains. Now, bibliography answers questions about books, because we have books being listed, we have magazines being listed, we have newspapers, we have CD-ROMs, we have libraries, we have publishing houses being listed. So a bibliography is generally a list about materials such as books, magazines, newspapers, CD-ROMs, databases, and the like. Now, why are bibliographies called control access directional? We'll start with control. Bibliographies serve as control device or checklists because they are an inventory of what is produced daily or yearly. They enable the compiler or producer to feel that they have a control through the organization of knowledge. So that is why we call a bibliography a controlled material. Now let's look at why bibliographies are also called access sources. Bibliographies provide access. They are prepared through research, that is the identification, the description, and the classification. And so because they are controlled and they provide access, they facilitate intelligent work. They are organized, so we call them directional. Bibliographies are also referred to as directional because they do not give definite answers, but they point to where you can find the answers. They serve to direct users to sources of answers. So most control access directional sources of reference are available not only in print, but also in electronic format. So you have the print, which is the big book, which tells you, gives you all the details about the authors, the types of materials, the titles, the publishers. But these days, we also have bibliographies in electronic format. We have subdivisions of bibliographies. And so these are examples of bibliographies. And later on, you would have to examine each of them to be familiar with these bibliographies. The first type of bibliographies we usually called the literature of a particular discipline. So you would refer to these as guide to the reference books. These are the literature of a particular discipline. We call them guides to the reference books. Another bibliography is known as the library catalog. I believe all of you have used catalogs, and when you come to the University of Ghana, we even have our catalog, which is online. The catalog enables you to find the materials which are listed in the library. Now, we also have what we call the bibliographical utilities. Examples being the OCLC, which is the acronym, and it stands for the Online Computer Library Center, as well as the Research Library Information Network, which is also known as RLIN. We have another bibliography, also known as the National Union Catalog. Now, this is a catalog of the US. In Ghana, we don't have a union catalog, so I cannot give you an example of a union catalog in Ghana, but we always refer to the National Union Catalog, which comprises the Library of Congress in the US and other libraries. That is the National Union Catalog. Then we have another bibliography known as indexes and abstracts, and they are all bibliographical aids. I believe you remember in the first session I mentioned indexes, and these are what secondary sources. Yes, they appear here as well. Indexes and abstracts, they are bibliographical aids. Now, this school of thoughts, which talks about control access directional, also talks about source types. Now, what do we mean by source types? Source types, they usually suffice in giving you the answers. So for instance, if you take a source type such as an encyclopedia, you are able to get the answer directly from the encyclopedia. So let's look at examples of source types. The first one we call encyclopedias, which you are all very familiar with. The second type we call fact sources. Now, fact sources examples include almanacs, handbooks, manuals, and directories. So these are fact sources. The third type, of course, I've mentioned dictionaries. So I've given you an example of a dictionary. The fourth type of source type we call biographical sources. I believe you know biographies describe importance of famous people. We have other source types, such as geographical sources. Examples, atlases, gazetteers, dictionaries of place names. A gazetteer is simply a dictionary of place names. And we also have guidebooks. Now, the last type of source types include government documents, official documents by the ministries, departments, agencies, and they carry all the information contained in them. So according to this school of thought, we have two main types of reference sources or information sources: control access direction, and those are the source types, and the source types which contain the information themselves. But as I mentioned earlier, all these categorization, that's this neat categorization of information into either a bibliography or a control access directional or into a source type, is only as a matter of convenience, simply because somebody can just be looking for information on an author who wrote the book, or what is the title of a particular book. The person gets the information from a bibliography, and that is all that the person needs, and so the person has obtained his information. And even though we said a bibliography just points, this information did not only point, but provided the information that the user actually need. So you see, even though I said control access are just mere directional, this one also provided information depending on the need of the user. Now, when it comes to source types, I say source type, they provide the information themselves. But imagine somebody who is using an encyclopedia and sees that there are additional references, and so he needs to consult the other additional references for information. This encyclopedia will only list the references, will only point to the references, and the user will need to go somewhere else to get the other information listed at the end of the encyclopedia. So in this example, the encyclopedia, although referred to as a source type, did not behave as a source type in this particular instance, because the user will have to consult another source to get the additional information. So in conclusion, we just do this categorization just for convenience, just to teach you that these sources exist. And especially these days when we have technology, all these source types, all these bibliographies are computerized. And depending on whether you have a subscription to a particular control access type, control access directional source, you may have complete information, you may have full information, and not only directional information. So for your activity, I'd want you to visit any information center and consult what we call the guides to the literature. Examples of the guides include the Walford's Guide to Reference Materials and Bailey's Guide to Reference Materials. These are bibliographies, and they fall under the control access directional type of information. Also consult indexes. They are also bibliographies, and I've given you examples. And then you can also search OCLC and RLIN. Because you do not have a subscription to all these, you would only visit the homepage. At least it gives you the opportunity to use the computer to search for these materials. Then for source types, you also have examples to work on. Encyclopedia, you can always look for the new Encyclopedia Britannica. Fact sources, consult the World Almanac and Book of Facts. The Statesman's Yearbook, they are all fact sources. So you have almanacs, yearbooks, handbooks, manuals, they are all part of the fact sources. Dictionary, of course, you all use dictionaries, so for our purposes, you'd consult the Webster's Third New International Dictionary. Biographical source, please consult the International Who is Who. For geographical source, also consult the Columbian Gazetteer. And we have one reference where you can read up about all these sources that I have mentioned. Thank you for paying attention.